This episode is a special one as I'm joined by a special guest talking about the release of their first game. Hey everyone, you're joining me, your host, Max Pears. Absolute pleasure, and thank you for listening to the show, whether this be morning, evening, or night. But not just me, we have a returning guest, an alumni of the show, the man, the myth, the legend, Colby, my friend. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me back. I really enjoyed the first time I was on here, so I'm super excited that you asked me to come back.
No, man, it's an absolute pleasure to have you back, mate, and to be talking to you again because so much has changed. I can't remember when our first episode was. It must have been a couple of years ago now with everything, but it was an absolute pleasure to have you on before, and I'm happy to welcome you back, mate. So again, thank you for taking time out of your busy day to chat with us, mate.
But first, let's have a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is none other than me. What I've done, everyone, and I hope you're excited for this, is I've actually created a level design kind of store. What I've done in this store is put up different kinds of tips and tricks that you can find there, whether that be my actual ebook itself to that of level design pamphlets focused on different things such as traversal, stealth, breaking into the industry, as well as different talks that I have done which you cannot find anywhere else other than on this store. So if you are looking to improve on your level design skills and processes, then check out the Level Design store, which will be down in the description below, where there'll be a link to find this. All you need to do is head over to gumroad.com/level design lobby. I hope you like what you see, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Thank you, and now back to the show.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll always make time for you. Yeah, I think last time we talked was 2019. It was like right when I got into the industry. So it's been 2.5 years, maybe 2 years.
Yeah, something like that, mate. That's incredible. Again, and you've gone off to do some amazing things. So do you want to, I guess, kind of reintroduce yourself for the people who didn't hear our episode, but also for those who, as we said, it's almost been 3 years. Give us an update on what you've been doing, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my name's Colby. I'm associate level designer currently at Archetype Entertainment. It's a new studio under Wizards of the Coast. I joined them back in August 2021. And so in the meantime, when I was transitioned to a new job there, finally got Halo Infinite shipped out the door there. So I think that's like the biggest update for me right now is at a new studio at a full-time position, and I was able to experience my first ship game.
That's amazing, mate. And with it being shipped now, mate, I guess some people don't really know because they're aspiring, and obviously more people like to talk about games than make them. Do you want to, I guess, express your kind of thoughts and feelings now the game's been out and kind of your reaction to seeing how the world's reacted to the game, mate?
Yeah. I think my biggest reaction is the overall, like the positive reactions to the game. I'm not saying I wasn't expecting that, but just like seeing everyone just react positively to like the story and to the design of the campaign, because I strictly worked on campaign, and just when that was released, and then I think I stayed up that night to watch the review embargo lift, and then everyone was giving it 10s and 9s, and it was just wild to see the first game that I had a chance to work on in this industry was getting all these great reviews right off the bat. It was super. I kind of had a little tear in my eye when I was laying in bed because it was like 1 or 2 a.m. when the review embargo lifted, and just seeing that the first thing when Halo when the review came out was super overwhelming to see.
That's amazing, mate. It must have been such a positive feeling for your first game as well to be received so well. And I guess, what is the thing that you are the most proud of in terms of your contribution to the game, mate?
I think the biggest thing I'm proud of is because I was strictly on the open world side of the campaign, and what they have in Halo Infinite is some sort of banished outposts, and I was able to work on a majority of those outposts, me and another level designer who I'm still pretty good friends with, we were able to work on those outposts together. And we each had our own separate outposts that we designed all by ourselves through iteration and feedback. We all know how level design goes, but
Yeah.
I think after seeing people play the game, watching playthroughs, and then when I like talk about what I worked on the game online, people tell me like some of the output. Like I think I saw today, like, oh my, those outposts that you worked on were like some of the best Halo sandbox areas in any Halo game I've played, and that's a super big that's like high praise, because Halo has great sandbox play through all the games. Someone talking about the outposts that I strictly designed was super heartwarming, just to hear about that and to see people's initial reactions to what I designed.
Oh, that's brilliant, mate. Did you do anything to celebrate? I guess you said it was like almost midnight, 1 a.m. for you, but did you do anything to celebrate the launch of the game?
No, not really. Just because it was super. Well, because that review embargo lifted. It was a couple days before, but I think the game launched. It was like the day it launched. It was like at 10 a.m. So I didn't have to stay up late for that. Fortunately for that, but I was able, because I still had to work, and I was just able to like pull up everybody's streams, like all the Halo content creators and everyone's streams of them playing it for the first time. That's kind of how I celebrated, just to watch other people experience the stuff I designed, because as a kid I've always like took longer to complete games just because I would actually care to like look around and take in the full experience of what game designers make for us, because it's all artwork, and seeing everyone's reactions to what I designed strictly was really cool. So I would like fast forward like some of their YouTube videos or something, find out like where they would get to my area, just so I can see how they would like tackle like my outposts, just because you can experience them from all different angles. And it was a super cool to see everyone jump into my designs that I had zero clue that maybe even a player would do that down the road.
I think it's fascinating now, especially with Twitch and streamers being so prominent in the gaming community, right? Just how much you can see once a game launches, and be able to assess, review, and like I said, see how someone plays with it. Because I remember when Division launched for me, and I was similar as you, man, just constantly looking at all the streams and just seeing, okay, well, how did they play here? Did they use the routes that I tried to highlight, or did they do something different? And it's such just a fascinating one, and also just a great way to learn, right? Even more because you have, like you said, thousands upon thousands of streamers who can give you different looks on what you have, which I think is always not only fun to see, but also, like you talked about, a great learning tool as well, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's like just because how big Twitch, YouTube is, and just constantly streams and videos up, and just being able to watch those at any time was really cool. And then just seeing how people take on the game, because there's no right way to play a video game, especially how us as level designers create things. We have an overall intent for the player, but like there's always going to be different scenarios that people take on in the design, and you're like, whoa, I never even would have thought of that, or like, oh, they didn't grab the power weapon, or like some people didn't find this or that, and it's just how people play, and it's really fun to see all the different perspectives.
Yeah, man. And if you don't mind, I just want to circle back, because you talked about kind of these outposts that you designed there. If you can talk about it, mate, what was kind of your philosophy and experience when designing these? What inspired these, and how did you go about making them in the end, mate?
At Level Design Lobby, we believe everybody has a story to tell. Hobbyist or student, freelancer or veteran, we made it our mission to unite those who share our passion for creating and developing great games. Thanks to our generous Patreon backers, we've been able to do just that. So if you've already pledged your support, thank you. If not, you too can ensure the future of Level Design Lobby, helping us to create even more exciting content, collaborations, interviews, and much more. With awesome perks and rewards, whether you're a seasoned professional or just getting started, you're sure to find something for you. Want to share tips, tricks, and advice with passionate, like-minded developers? our awesome community Discord has you covered. Fancy practicing your level design, creating strong portfolio content, and having fun? Then try our level design weekends. Or perhaps you want to individually discuss your work, hone your skills, or level up your career? Then consider our one-on-one mentorships. If you share our vision, then go to patreon.com/level design lobby for more information and to pledge your support. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Going back to the outposts, they all had an overall like hierarchy theme to them. Like I think one of my favorite one is called Annex Ridge, and it's on this big hexagonal cliff in the campaign. And like the overall theme of that is the Banished like settled around this area where there were some like Forerunner rings, and they wanted to like extract the data from the Forerunner rings. So that was like the whole story for that outpost. So I was able to take that theme and story and actually create a unique like sandbox for the players to jump in and just experience. Because there's a lot of set dressing for like the Forerunner rings to be like broken down or stripped or being studied within that outpost. And I was able to have a big part in that and designing that whole space to show that the enemy was actually here studying everything, and the main objective was to destroy this new ship they made to take the Forerunner rings and actually like take them off planet to study them more. And you're able to, as like Master Chief, jump in and see what's going on and then stop that operation. So it was really fun to design the outposts just because they weren't all the same. I've noticed in some games, like some outposts are kind of samey. I was really fortunate that the outposts in Halo Infinite were so different with the theming that each time we would be assigned to a new outpost, we got a new theme, new objectives, and we were able to completely change how we design each outpost. Yeah. Because these outposts can be like approached like any way, any shape, form. Like you can fly in with a wasp or take a tank, take a bunch of Marines in. There's so many different opportunities for the player to tackle on these outposts. It was sometimes kind of hard to justify like, okay, this is a good route, or like, oh, the player can do this or that. So that was a big part of the design process of what was how do I think the player will approach this situation when it's placed in front of them.
Yeah, I would say I would love for you to, if you can, explain more. Like, what's your design kind of mentality when you're designing more of these? Like you said, you can tackle these in so many ways, right? And we see in a lot of student portfolios, they're much more kind of linear level design approach, right? But if you were to give anyone a tip who's working on, say, an open world or sandbox kind of arena, what tips do you think you'd give them, mate?
Yeah. Like you said, with like new students design levels, they're super linear because those are more straightforward level design. It's easier to see like the designer's intent of how they want the player to play the space.
Yeah.
I still have a bunch of those on my portfolio of old stuff I've made that are super linear. I think the biggest piece of advice I can give to designers trying to create more like open areas, similar to these outposts, or even like Far Cry outposts, or just any design that I created when designing these, that made no sense, but when designing these spaces, the best advice I can give is you need to you can't overwhelm the player with so many opportunities in these types of scenarios, especially in like a first person shooter, because like you're so limited with your field of view that the player has to like look at. So when you're presenting the player with so many different options to tackle these spaces, it can sometimes be a little overwhelming to the player, and they're not gonna maybe pick the best, like the best route to approach a situation, or maybe they get too overwhelmed and they leave because they don't know what to do, because this is an open, more open world, and they can come and go as they please. That was one of the biggest things, even for my level design test with my lead at 343 was I was sometimes giving the player too many options at once, and it was just overstimulating.
Yeah.
So I think that's the best option I give, is not to just overstimulate the player with so many different options right at once. Like in an open world like this with these outposts, of course, once you're inside of them, there's multiple things to do and multiple routes to take. But like right off the bat, you don't want to just like throw everything at the player directly. You can like slowly throw that at them as they're in the space, and then they can choose how to tackle the space with the intent that, or with the way you intended for them to play.
No, I mean, that's some great advice. And I'm wondering as well, because you're designing very organic spaces as well, right? Like, even though that you have these outposts on top of it, right? At the end of the day, they're, the story of them is they're working within their means. They've picked this land to try and make the best of it, right?
Yeah.
And how is it designing, I guess, organic spaces? How do you have any tips for that you could pass on to others?
I think maybe the best tips I have for that is, especially with what I designed in Halo, it does look like they chose the space to just build their base onto. I think the best advice I can is try to familiarize yourself with like the surrounding environment for like the space you're designing in. I had a lot of help from environment artists to because we would work directly with environment artists on Halo just to make sure that we were in the means of scope and like this was achievable of like what kind of design I wanted. So I'd always be chatting with my environment artist who would take that design and then or take the block out and then art it up and make it look all nice and pretty. But I think the best advice is to work closely with an environment artist to see if what you're trying to envision for your design is feasible, like art wise. And then after if something like that's going to work out, like I said, looking around the surrounding areas to try to like interconnect your space with the space that's outside your space, if that makes sense. Because the easiest thing is to just or the biggest mistake is just throw things into your design and then try to make like the terrain or like the trees and how everything's positioned just work with your design. And sometimes that's not the best way to approach a situation. So I think having another person's eyes, especially an environment artist's eyes, was the best thing that helped me design these outposts. I think that's the best advice I can give is, just make sure you work directly with environment artists who has an eye for these, because that's what they're the professionals of this, and they're artists just like us, and they know a lot more than us on certain things and how things can be like compositionally like sized up and worked out. But and then because some of these outposts they're pretty unique inside them, but if you look on the like on the outer edges of what I designed, I tried to keep that overall theme all together and try to make it flow really nicely in what with the space I created.
Oh man, that's great. And I was going to say, because this is, we both know this and most people listening will know this, but some may not, but just how closely we work with obviously other disciplines, but environment art being one of the closest we work with for sure. And I was just wondering again, like, how did you guys communicate? Any tips on how to best work together? I know it should be simple. Again, don't be a dickhead, but there's obviously a lot more to it than just that, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. I think how I worked well with my environment artists, like I became friends with them. Like we would go out to lunch and all that, but now things are a little different with the situation the game industry is in with work from home.
Yeah.
I think the best thing is just familiarize yourself with your coworker on who you're going to be working directly with for the rest of the project, and just become friends. So you're able to just, like, pardon my French, but shoot the shit with each other on what you're able to do within like your design. Like you said, it might seem simple, but in reality, sometimes a lot of people have like they don't have that cross discipline. Like they don't work well with cross disciplines. And I think as level designers, since everything is basically going into your design, whether that be art, story, engineering, programming, gameplay, everything goes into what level designers create. So I feel like you have to be a pretty good like communicator to other disciplines.
Yeah.
I think that's the easiest way to put it, is you just got to be good at communicating with people on different disciplines within your studio.
No, man, I think you're so right. And I want to switch up gears here for a second, mate, because you've done such a great job answering these questions. There's another thing that I actually wanted to pick your brain on, because it's like I said, it's been around about 2.5 to 3 years since we last spoke, and you have a new job now. And at the time of us recording this, I actually just released an episode about like tips on applying for jobs and how to go through that. And obviously, you've gone through it as of recent and that. How has it been now that you've been in the industry, you've gone somewhere else? how's that been for you, and what do you think you've learned and done different from when you first broke into the industry, mate?
I think the biggest difference is that it's clear that to see like when I'm applying or I'm interviewing, like they understand that I have, um, like I just have the skills and knowledge of what it takes to make a video game. We all know video games are extremely hard to make, and it's a miracle even if it ships out the door.
Yeah.
But like I think a lot of my time in interviews is more of like me explaining like my design process and how I work well with the other disciplines. Going back to that, a lot of because I interviewed with at a lot of studios up to when my time at 343 was ending. Interviewed with maybe 10 plus studios, and a majority of them
Wow, that's a
all
lot.
asked, yeah, that's quite a bit. But a majority of them asked like, okay, if you're presented with this situation, how did you fix this? Or like one of them was, say you need something that needs to happen on the design end, but like maybe something's level locked and we can't change that, or like environment art is locked. And I would explain like if I've had that sort of situation, and as you're have more industry experience, you're going to be prompted with these types of situations where you have to kind of like communicate with the higher ups and other disciplines on what you
Yeah.
need done. And sometimes like of course when you go to change something that's locked, it's going to take time. It's expensive to do that because you have such a limited budget on certain things that you can put time to. So I think the biggest tip I have is when applying to jobs is making sure it's easier said than done, but making sure um, like your past experience and like how you're able to um, kind of derailing here, but the biggest thing is just having that experience like on my belt, and then if someone asks me certain situations, I'm able to replicate the knowledge that I've earned and had from working on Halo and working
Yeah.
in the AAA space. But that was like that was the biggest question for everybody, is like, how did you approach this situation, or
Oh, interesting.
what did you do with this? It's clear to see that I have like the experience of working on Halo, even when like it wasn't shipped yet. I was still interviewing. It's unfortunate I wasn't able to show my work, but when interviewing and they're asking me all these questions, it's clear to see that I have the knowledge and like experience of working on a video game in the AAA space.
It's such an interesting one that you found that like that was the most common question, because I've gotten that a couple times, but I mean every studio, place, and time, different people, right? Like it's always different. You're never gonna get the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like fascinating to hear that was the most or the common question you noticed. Just because I do, again, maybe your experience was different, mate. What I found is, especially when you get tests, they
Oh
very
yeah.
much focus on, again, like the test, what you would have done, and the feedback, how you take feedback, etc. Like that seems to be was a big one on my when I was applying for jobs, was the test itself, and then how you handled feedback, which was a fascinating one.
Yeah,
So,
like you said, every studio is different with that. But like each studio I applied to, I had to do a level design test for. Took a week out of my time to bust out a nice level,
was it a
whether that
week each
be
time as well? Wow, man.
yeah. They give me like a week each time, but I would kind of like tell my wife, I'd be like, hey, I got a test to do. I'm gonna just jump into this and just try to set aside time to like focus on that, because that's like the first step in interviewing
Yes.
is those level design tests. They can be tedious at sometimes, but if you like submit a good design, they're gonna like that and be like, okay, let's go over feedback in that. And like you said,
Yeah.
they watch and see how you react to the feedback they give, because uh, being able to accept positive and negative or critical feedback is a big part of being a level designer, because your first design is never ever going to be the same
Nope.
as the shipped form.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's probably a lot better what you say. Like being able to accept the feedback that they give on tests is a big thing, because that's sort of the first step. Not
Yeah.
really the first, but like the second step in the process. And then if they like how you react to feedback and they like you as a person, they'll definitely like move you on and do like team interviews and see how you interact with actual people to see if you're a fun and engaging person.
That's it. Like it kind of feels like each step, as you're saying, right, is like almost measuring a different part of you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether that be like the final stage, as we say, like measuring you as a human being. The step after the test, well, how do you work and how do you design? And then your test actually discussing it, feedback, and breaking down your thought process, right? So it's always an interesting one. But I guess with, because you interviewed at quite a lot of places, mate.
Oh
How
yeah.
I noticed this myself is like how long the process can take as well, right? Like they can range from like 6 to 9 months, some of them that I've gone through, and it's quite
Oh
a
wow.
yeah,
That's
quite
a long time.
a long process. Oh yeah, mate, yeah. There's not everyone is that obviously. Like I said, each place is different, but I'd definitely say on average from my experience again, from the first interview to signing the contract, on average seems to be about 5 to 6 months. I don't know how that experience was different for you, mate.
Yeah, I've had some pretty long. I don't think as long as 6 months.
Mm.
I think my longest was maybe 3.5 to 4, just because it was a lot of back and forth. Like it all depends on the studio and like who's in charge of the hiring and like
Yeah.
recruiting and all that. But I think the longest was maybe 3.5 to 4 months. Just because there's the recruiter or like the HR recruiter, like phone interview, and then you do the design test. Then you like it just takes so long for me to do the design test. That's like a whole week or maybe two,
Yes. Yeah.
and then you submit it. They review it. Like it does take quite a long time. I think the shortest was actually for Halo. I applied in I think February of like
Mm-hmm.
2019, and I was offered at the end of actually no, I applied at the end of January 2019, and I was offered at the end of March, and then I started like
Right.
2 weeks later, in the middle of April. So that one was the quickest one I've had. But like you said, they can take like it all depends on the studio and how they
Yeah.
approach recruiting.
That's it, and how how desperate they are for people, right?
Hmm.
And again, when we say this isn't criticisms. We're just pointing out the lengths that it can range each place. Because I get a lot of students saying, "Oh, I haven't heard back in a week." I'm just like, that's like the norm.
That's
It's
normal, very
yeah,
normal.
like it's not normally till 2 to 3 weeks do you traditionally hear back or so, and especially after a test, that can take like some places I've had it where it takes up to 4 weeks to hear back from them after a test. So like it's again different places and spaces, man.
Hmm.
But I guess my final question for you, mate. Now that you're advancing through your career, your first game is shipped. Like you said, you're doing incredible things, mate. I guess what's the two questions is like, well, what advice do you have if you could to your past self now where you are, and then kind of what is it that you want next? More than just releasing games. What is it that fires you up in the morning to keep making games, mate?
Yeah, I think the advice I'd have for my younger self, and this can even go out to other aspiring level designers, is like when you're interviewing, um, like when you're going through the interview process and you get past the design test, and then the next step is like the team interviews. I was always super afraid of the team interviews where you sit down and chat with different members of each discipline. I would always be like, we all get those interview nervous, like we get that feeling in our stomach that, oh, this
Yeah.
is an interview. I gotta knock it out of the park. But I think the best advice I can give to my younger self and other people is when you get to that step in the process is try not to like overthink it, because I, after interviewing with so many different studios and doing the team interviews, that's my favorite part of interviewing is the team interviews, because you're just chatting with other people about your experience. And I think one interview, like we were talking about dogs, like we were talking about corgis, because one of the environment artists had a corgi and my German Shepherd was in the background. So it's really just like a
Yeah.
humble, down to earth, like Zoom call that you have with the team. And so just to never like overthink those, because on all reality, they're just there to see if you're a good people person and if you can communicate well with others.
For sure.
I think that's the easiest part of the interview process,
Yeah.
because it's the most fun, because you get to meet new people and just chat about
Yeah,
random
man.
things like dogs.
That's it.
And then what I think what we said, like what wakes me up in the morning to design games. I think as I advance through my career, of course, we want to move up in our disciplines and go from associate to mid to senior to even principal. But I think what gets me up is I'm not chasing like a pay raise or anything like that. I'm just chasing to like better myself as a designer. So of course I want to like move up from associate to mid level, but I'm not chasing a pay raise or anything like that. I'm just chasing the skills that I need to get at that level. I think studios with their leads, being a lead at a studio isn't about being the best. From my experience, what I've had, like it's about,
No, it's not at all.
it's about teaching the people, like the designers under you, to be better than you. And from my experience of where I'm at now and at 343, I've had that experience where my lead is trying to get me better than him or her. And I've had that experience, and that's been a positive experience. So I think that's what gets me up to make games and be a better designer, is just to try to chase that next role, just so that next advancement in my career, just so I can be a better designer for myself and for my studio and my team.
Awesome, mate. Great answer. Great answer, mate. And for those who want to reach out to you and get to know more about you, how can they do so, buddy?
I think the best thing is just on Twitter. It says Kolbe Payne on Twitter. I actually recently joined a big game dev list for aspiring like level designers to reach out to me for like feedback on their portfolios, or even like on certain level designs they have. It's not much of a mentor role. I'd love to do that in the future, but with the baby on the way and crazy things happening this year, I don't know if I can commit to that much time. But I'm always willing to help people. Like currently, I have a lot of people in my DMs and on Discord. I'm chatting with them about like how to prepare for this next interview, or chat with them on their portfolio and what works and what doesn't work. So I think the best thing is just reach out to me on Twitter, because I'm always willing to help or answer any questions.
I will put down the link in the description below. Colby's contact details. If you do want to reach out to him, you can go through there. If you want to reach out to me, you can do so as well on Twitter. I'm just at Max Pears. You can email any questions you like to the show at leveldesignlobby@gmail.com. And if you want to support the show to make sure that we keep getting better, then please head over to patreon.com/leveldesignlobby. Thank you all very much. We'll catch you all next time. Take care and see you later.